Hey everyone, Amar here. In this video, we're going to be talking about how you create your own problems, why you perceive reality negatively, okay? And how you really have a huge role in your own suffering. So I want to explain some psychological and emotional dynamics that when you understand, you'll have a lot more awareness around freeing yourself from them, okay? So first of all, I want to talk about how we tend to experience life, tend to experience reality. Generally, the three-dimensional world makes us believe everything is cause and effect. So something happens outside of me which makes me feel a certain way. Excuse me. So for example, you're driving along and someone cuts you off, right? You get angry and resentful. You think you have a right to feel angry and resentful. You feel in that moment that your reaction is valid. That person cut you off. Or let's say you have an experience where you get rejected, right? Someone turns you down for some reason. And you feel very bad and sad and rejected about that. And you think, okay, well, this is how things should be. That person turned me down, so I have a right to feel rejected. I would say this thought, this idea, this belief is wrong, because obviously in the spiritual understanding is that reality is objective. There's no meaning other than the meaning that we give it. And in actual fact, the meaning that we are giving our experiences is actually something we're creating in ourselves, right? Because if you were meant to get angry when someone cut you off, and that was the reality, everybody would get angry if that was the truth. Or when you get rejected and you feel bad about that, everybody would feel bad when you got rejected, if it was true. But in actual fact, because we believe we are limited, we create our own suffering. So something happens outside of me and I project meaning onto it from my own unconscious programming. Because using these examples, someone could get cut off while driving and not really have much of a reaction. Another person could get rejected, and again, they might not feel too much about it. They won't let it get them down and sad. So what I want to help you see is why you have a certain negative reaction to certain things that happen. So first of all, I want to show you this model first, and we'll talk about this one. So imagine this model here is like your ego, your sense of self. This is your ego, right? And what happens is that we develop emotional attachments based upon negative experiences we had when we were growing up, right? In our kind of infantile years. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, but there's many different emotional attachments that we can create. So for the sake of this video, we're going to choose three. So let's say there's one, there's one, there's one. Bearing in mind, this is like your whole identity. But let's say you've developed three of these emotional attachments based upon some negative experiences you had. So this one, let's say it's rejection. And I'll talk about each one. So maybe some point in your life when you were young, you felt rejected, right? What I'm suggesting here is whenever we have a strong negative emotional experience when we're young, we create an attachment to it. Okay? And as you can see, it becomes a part of your identity. So you create an attachment to something that happened to you when you were very young, and you actually want to experience yourself in that way, right? Because this is how you know yourself. This is how you know your ego. In the same way, let's do this one. Let's say you were criticized. Not sure if I've spelled that right. And so growing up, maybe one of your parents criticized you, siblings, friends, whatever. And so you developed this emotional attachment to criticism because it was a strong feeling at the time, and you made it a part of yourself, right? Because you literally believed everything that was happening, however you were feeling, was true about you. And the third one, let's say, we can say maybe lack, right? It's a popular one, right? Maybe you grew up with limited resources, your family weren't very rich or wealthy, and you experienced this feeling of lack, right? So you created an attachment to that feeling as well. So like I said, I've just used these as an example, but we can create an attachment to any negative experience we had early on, right? And by attachment, I mean it becomes a part of who you are. So when it becomes a part of who you are, it means you want to experience that part of yourself because it's part of who you are and how you identify yourself. So now I want to take your attention to this second model, and I want to show you how these attachments play out in your day-to-day life and experience. So let's say consciously, this is your conscious mind here, consciously you have a thought and you think, okay, I want to find a relationship, right? So you go out and you try to find a relationship and you keep struggling. I've actually been talking to a lot of guys recently who struggle with this. This is one of the reasons I made the video, give me the idea for the video. So you keep failing and you can't realize why you're failing. So you might try to change a lot of things on the surface, but nothing much seems to work. The reason you would be struggling in this situation of trying to attract someone using this again is you've got this attachment in your subconscious mind to rejection. So you actually want to experience rejection because, like I said, this is how you know yourself. So as much as you try with your limited conscious mind to get that relationship or that acceptance, subconsciously, your programming is functioning to get you rejected. I would actually go as far as to say you self-sabotage yourself. Unconsciously, in very minute ways, you're doing little things that are going to invite rejection, right? Using the relationship example, you might say the wrong thing, right? You might put your foot in it. You might just act weird, right? And you might not realize why you're doing that because deep down you're looking to be rejected because you've got the attachment to the emotion and this is how you know yourself. Yeah, crazy, I know. So I'm just trying to show you the underlying dynamics. Now let's look at the other examples. So the criticism one. So you've got this attachment to criticism as well. Oh, my spelling is butchered. But consciously, you want to do something, right? Maybe you're a perfectionist. That's a great defense against criticism. You're trying to do something great, but you can't quite do it as well as you want. Or it's not very well received, or people criticize it, right? Again, I would suggest you're looking for that feeling. So as much as you try to do something as well as you can, sometimes you'll do something very subtly that will invite criticism, right? Because your subconscious mind is so powerful. It's literally co-creating what you experience and how you experience things. Someone might even give you feedback, valid feedback, but because you want to experience criticism, you'll internalize that feedback as criticism, right? Whereas someone else might have just took it as feedback and learnt from it and incorporated it and become better, right? But because you're so hell-bent, literally, to experience the criticism, because it's how you know yourself, you will perceive reality through that lens, right? You'll be looking for ways to feel critical about yourself, right? You'll invite criticism from others. Crazy. And then the third one, let's use the example of lack, right? So consciously you might think, okay, I want to go out, I want to make loads of money, right? Who doesn't? But as much as you try, you might keep self-sabotaging yourself. You can't quite get to that goal, right? Whatever that is for you. Because subconsciously, I think this is quite a popular one, a lot of people understand through things like law of attraction, you're attached to feeling lack, right? You might even get something that you want, but then you might think, I want the next thing. That's an attachment to lack. You can never feel appreciation for what you get or what you've got because you're so hell-bent and content on experiencing lack. And literally what I'm saying is the emotional attachments that we have is the lens that we see the world through, right? So if reality is objective, these emotional attachments, which are so strong, which is what makes us human, which is what really gives our life meaning, is our feelings, right? Is how we look at everything, right? We just see things through these attachments because this is how we want to experience ourselves. It's absolutely insane. And the best way to break free of this is to begin to see how you are kind of co-creating. And I say co-creating because, like I said, reality is objective. You're creating some feeling inside you based upon something that happens. So the feeling's coming from within you. You can even take this a step further and say you might create a thought, right? Literally a thought that creates these negative feelings in you. So it doesn't even have to be something on the outside. You can just think something consciously that'll trigger these emotions because this is how you want to experience yourself. The good news is when we begin to see the attachments through things like self-observation, I've got a video on self-observation, I'll link it up here. You begin to see how they're not working for you, and you can begin to kind of slowly over time let them go. But you can't let them go until you see them. So a simple way to do this practice is just to look at your life. What emotion do you feel a lot, right? Or what negative experiences did you have growing up and how did they make you feel? And understand that you're likely recreating that same emotional state today, right now, because it's wired into you on a very deep level. And you've built your whole identity around it. And the most fucked up thing about this is that sometimes you're not going to want to let these attachments go because this is how you know yourself. And knowing yourself in a whole different way is actually quite scary. It's going into the unknown, right? And that is uncomfortable. But worry about that part of the journey when you get there. First of all, I just want to bring your attention to this stuff. And this really is going into things like manifestation, which is something I'm just gradually getting interested in. I've kind of tried to trust my intuition. I'm not saying I'm going to become one of them law of attraction YouTubers, but I see how we co-create our own reality. And in the same way, if you had positive emotional attachments, which you will have, then you would see life through a completely different lens, right? It's like having the opposite of lack would be abundance, right? We know this. The people who see things through abundance see opportunity, possibilities, and everything that's good, right? Instead of rejection, maybe you had more loving beliefs. You would see how people welcome you and appreciate you instead of feeling rejected. Instead of experiencing yourself through criticism, you might see how the good qualities that you have, right? So this is how empowering this stuff is. It really shapes our day-to-day, moment-by-moment experience. So I want you to start to see these attachments you've got so you can start to free yourself from them. Okay? But for now, I think that's everything I've got to talk about in the video. I hope this made some sense to you. If you have any comments, questions, anything at all to add, you know what to do. Hit me up down below. If you did enjoy the video, you can please consider like, share, subscribing. Check out my book if you haven't already. I'll put a link down below. But until next time, remember to keep living free and being free. Peace.